What's up, beauties? My name is Brooke. Welcome to another Brooke DBJ production. Today's video, Edmonton Transit LRT. Alright, so, what we see here is the Edmonton Transit System LRT network as it expands into 2020. The green line, expanding from downtown Edmonton into southeast Edmonton, is not yet open, and will not be open until December of 2020. But for the sake of this video, we will assume that this video is in 2020, even though it's 2018. Anyway, so we see the blue line, which is the capital line, the red line, which is the metro line, and the green line, which is the valley line. The capital and metro lines use high-floor Siemens Duwag U2s and Siemens SD160s, and the valley line will use Bombardier Flexity Freedom 2s. So, after 2020, the first expansion to the Edmonton LRT network is actually westbound on the Valley Line. As we see here, it extends out of downtown, down Stony Plain Road, down 156th Street and Meadowlark Road, and out to Lewis Farms Transit Center, with a stop at the West Edmonton Mall and Misericordia Hospitals along the way. Now, this should have been made years ago, back when West Edmonton Mall was starting to pick up traction back in the 1980s. But, yeah, city planners between 1980 and today were kind of stupid. In my eyes, anyway. Because that's a tourist attraction, and there are only buses going there at this point. This is about 2025, so the city says. The next expansion is actually to northwest city limits just outside of St. Albert. Going up along, it's not 137th Avenue, I don't know what street that is. I'm going to say it's about 109th Street. And going over the CN Yard. Before continuing on 137th Avenue to 142nd Street area-ish, where they stop along the way at Castle Downs Transit Center. This makes sense for Northwest Edmonton, as Northeast Edmonton has had LRT for quite a number of years, almost 50 years at that point. So our next expansion is actually on the Capital Line, which will happen, I think, at about the same time, northeast to Gorman, and southwest to Ellerslie West. As these two areas by this point will be underserved. It expands down from Century Park and north from Clairview Station to these new destinations. The next expansion, which is also a new line, is the Energy Line from Sherwood Park to Lewis Farms. Using Edmonton's already built transit network at this point, the line out to Sherwood Park to Bethel Transit Center is relatively short, only extending from about Holyrood Station to Bethel Station, with an intermittent stop at not McNally High School, Capilano Transit Center, which I would assume is relocated in order to better serve the new library that was built this year, and the train. Next, we have the Festival Line, which adds new track on 109th Street / 112th Street. I would assume that this is going to use a rebuilt high-level bridge to cross the North Saskatchewan River, extending from Bethel Transit Center to Millwoods Town Center. As we see, it goes from Sherwood Park, following roughly the exact same route as the Energy Line, until about McEwen Arts, where it will turn south on 109th Street to go to the University of Alberta, the Stollery Children's Hospital, and down 82nd Avenue, otherwise known as White Avenue, making the Edmonton Center Loop a reality. At this point, there are now a few transfer points online. So our next expansion is actually on the Capital Line, and possibly some of the longest yet, with the line going northeast to Fort Saskatchewan, and mostly south down to Leduc, with a stop at the Edmonton International Airport and Nisku Industrial Park. The Edmonton International Airport has had a bus going to it since about 2012, the 747 from Century Park Transit Center. And it's about a good 30 minutes to the airport. With the fare being $5, most people find that as an easier pill to swallow than $10 that it jumped to, but now it's $5 again. But I assume when the airport and Leduc come into play, the fare will be base price. And by about 2040, I'm assuming this is going to be done, the fare is probably going to be $5 anyway. So our next expansion, which is probably going to happen at about the same time as Fort Saskatchewan Airport, is the Metro Line northwest into St. Albert downtown, and possibly a little bit farther in, as St. Albert is likely going to complain because Sherwood Park got LRT first. But, you know, a train's a train's a train's a train. Better late than never, they always say. The Capital Line extension to Westmount. For Edmontonians that don't know, there's a knockout wall just past Corona Station that seems to go farther west down Jasper Avenue, which I think would make for a great expansion west on the Capital Line. Since this is only a small branch of the Capital Line, Capital Line trains can still run between Leduc and Fort Saskatchewan with, I don't know, maybe every third train diverting to Westmount, and then back again, turning around at Clairview to go back to the airport. So I think Westmount at that point would only be maybe every 15 minutes, even in the rush hour period, maybe a little bit lower. Probably lower, probably about 5-10 minutes, which means that's a lot of trains on the track. However, we are probably going to have a lot of new operations and maintenance facilities near St. Albert, Fort Saskatchewan, the one by Clairview, which is a given, and probably the one by Ellerslie West, and probably another one just outside of Leduc. So, a little bit farther into the future, we see a Capital Line extension all the way out to Stony Plain, Alberta, with intermittent stops at Atchison and Spruce Grove. At this point, the westward line on Capital Line has become simply too long. So the city officials, I assume, would make a decision to have the Capital Line abandon its original alignment from Corona down to go west, and to have the Metro Line take over into the airport, which makes more sense anyway, because why have a northeast-southwest line and then with a northeast-west line, right? So you gotta have a northwest to south line instead, as the line realigns to be center. We will then probably see a Valley Line expansion, the first in, I don't know, probably 30 years or so, down to Ellerslie East and Beaumont. Because Ellerslie kind of spans that bottom section of Edmonton just outside the South Henday Ring Road. And into Beaumont seems like a natural progression at that point. Next we have a Festival and Valley expansion to a new branch to Sherwood Park, which would probably only be operating at about the peak hour, which in Edmonton is about 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3:30 to 6:30. Out to Orr's Transit Center, if it still exists by that point. I don't think it would, but it might, because Bethel Transit Center in Sherwood Park, even today, takes in more buses than Orr's. But because it connects more in line to White Avenue and to the University of Alberta, Orr's is likely still going to be a station with a connecting bus between Bethel and Orr's, as they do today. Our next little expansion is actually a loop around the West Edmonton Mall on the Festival and Valley lines. This loop would be operational all day except for peak hour, so the trains can still go between Lewis Farms, Millwoods, and Sherwood Park. This loop would only be operational at the start of service to 7 a.m., and then from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., and then from 6:30 to the end of service, with stops at the original West Edmonton Mall station, Phase 4, which is currently the movie theater, Phase 3, which is the T&T supermarket, and Phase 1, the original section of West Edmonton Mall, which would make for a really easy way to get around the mall without having to fight with the traffic inside the mall. And so that's the end of the Edmonton LRT as the city envisions it. And that's kind of where we end up today, with the system looking like this. So we see our little connector blobs at Churchill Station, at 124th Station, Health Science Jubilee Station, and at Bonnie Doon Station, and Holyrood Station, all within the central part of Edmonton. Kind of like London, they don't merge really outside of the city. So, that is my take on the Edmonton LRT network. I'm going to say about 2070, which would make almost 100 years since the Edmonton LRT first came into place in 1978. Thank you so very much for watching. Leave a like if you liked it. Leave a comment down below. Maybe tell me what you would do if you lived in Edmonton with our admittedly shitty, currently, LRT network, or what you would do differently from what I've done. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you beauties next time. Peace out.